Alright, I changed the stream title. And we should be good to go for round 2, where we're going to take a look at the Resurgence map submissions. Yeah, if you're only joining now, overlay away, it means that you did miss the part where we went over Terra Nova duos, but once we're done, you can go back and take a look at the VOD. I will also possibly upload it to YouTube, but otherwise I will save it on my Twitch, so it'll be there indefinitely. I did have to power through a bit because we have a lot to look at, and this is already a long thing. So let's continue. So Terra Nova duos, though. Wait, we finished Terra Nova duos. The Resurgence is a 1v1 event. This means we want a 1v1 scenario. All right. To reload the scenario editor. There we go. Tiny. And we're going to do it the same way as we did Terra Nova duos. Let me just get the right folder that I have the maps in. The Resurgence. There we go. Oh my goodness, this is 33 items. Let's go. So we're going to do them in order from the top. If you're following along, you can follow on Discord and look at the relevant channel where they were listed. Number 1 is Wata Arabia, or Wata Arabia, or Watar Arabia. It's basically Arabia, but I've replaced all the forests with water. This creates a much more dynamic map where you must utilize the lumber in your stockpile exceptionally carefully, as there is no other source of wood on the map. As a side note, elevation has also increased a lot. Now, unfortunately, Grazini didn't actually make a script for that. He just put a troll post in the text file, so we don't have to look at Water Arabia. Next up, let's close some of these. Next up is Nervous Nuggets. Let us get a Nervous Nugget. N. What's the prefix for that? DD, a delicious dozen. Nervous Nuggets. There we go. D. Nervous Nuggets. Alright. I seem to remember debugging a map that looked vaguely like this at some point. But let's read. There we go. Nomads start, but with 2 villagers in each of the 2 nuggets for a total of 4. 1 nugget features goldfish, but otherwise fairly sparse food, while the other nugget has golden calves, but otherwise sparse on gold. It's a 3-tile chop out of the nugget for the neutral stone and sparse amounts of gold, as well as Scandinavian-style water borders. Will you be too nervous to enjoy your nuggets, knowing there's at least 2 vills, if not the enemy TC sharing it? Too many 2 puns. Right. So basically you have Nomad, but where do you build? Okay, so we have some fancy things here that we need to take a look at, probably in game, to see what they would do. But let's just take a quick look at, see if we see anything with a deer count. Find next. Forge with a second object, a deer. Or is it just a forest with a deer on it? Maybe it is. What's this one have on it? It has gold. And elephants with ostriches on them. Okay. Interesting. Yes, yeah, I debugged one that looked like this. It didn't have the water, or it wasn't quite like this yet, but maybe so you get extra food. I thought maybe it would be some sort of thing where the forage bushes actually have 0 food and this is only a scenario editor thing. You don't see it in game, but that's not the case. These are actual... This is just a bunch of doubled up things. These are doubled up trees. Those give a nice effect here. But it's just everything is doubled up. There's also golden calves. It's a calf on the rock. Cow on the rock. What's on these? There's also something hiding there. It's a fish, I think, hiding under the rock. For gameplay, this might be tricky. I don't know, like if you send your villager and then you have trouble, you're trying to click the corner to gather fish rather than to gather gold or something. I don't know how that plays out. Also, looking at this, the gold distribution on the outside might be a bit haphazard. As in, not so balanced always. I see 2 relics. Gameplay-wise, the question is where to build your TC, of course. Which side. Interesting. Next up, we have City Escape. And I feel like this one was played in a show match or something. Let's take a look at City Escape. This one, by the Mad Catter. He didn't submit anything to the other one, of course, because it was basically his event. Most of the maps in there are by him. But here we have a city, and let's read a description. Players start stuck inside a walled city. It may take considerable time to break down the walls. Players may be able to stake their claim on the outside earlier if they transport out by way of the river or a siege tower hop over the walls. Only military units can attack the Gaia wall. We know this, yeah, villagers just repair Gaia buildings. So, yep, you are trapped in the city. This is a fortified wall, probably. It looks like it to me. What have we got in here? Lots of shallows. Sort of Mediterranean style look overall. Double walls here. Ah! Is it double walls everywhere or only on the diagonals? Double walls on the diagonals so you don't, like, house or tower hop out. That's a good thing to have thought about. So essentially it's another take on Hamburger-ish. I don't know, is that fair to even say that? It's different enough. Maybe not, So you fight in the middle, let's see. Resources look standard. Double berries though. And then essentially you build a ram at some point and break your way out. I would say. It's not super critical, although what happens is because you're so close, there's tower rushes and archers are particularly viable. I don't know if the double walls are intentional, but I don't... Depends on how they're placed. They could be intentional or not. It's possible to be more precise, I think, for this. We can take a look at it. I just still have the wrong map. City Escape. Change the terrain ID of boars and relics. They might prevent hopping out. So you can't tower hop your villagers out early. Where's the wall? Fortified wall. If fortified walls are being created twice, once on gravel beach, once on wet beach. I don't know, maybe you're right, maybe it is just... Maybe it is not intention. Maybe it is just an artifact. Could I humor you and test it? What would you want me to test though? Whether or not you can hop out? I think the tower hopping was actually patched. You can only do it on like certain parts these days. You're right, it is probably an artifact of... It is probably an artifact after all. Because I have this on Canberra, not with walls, but with rocks. It's just because the terrain is too wide here. Yeah, and here the terrain is only 1 wide. It's probably because it is being placed on a terrain. Also, there seems to be an elevation difference. Which we only see now that we're deleting the wall. Interesting. Yeah, gates are tricky in general to place as Gaia things. Let's move on. Next up we have Yukon. And we're gonna need Y for that, not Yucatan, Yukon. There we go. And we need on here. Alright, after this we should probably reload the scenario editor. Nomads start where the players start in a clearing with large amounts of deer. A river with some fish separates the players from all the gold and stone on the map. Players will have to be careful managing their forces across many areas around the map. Players start with loom already researched. Players start with a hunting wolf and a spearman. We've seen that before. The wolf has 4 attack and can be made to run with shift clicking. Both units behave like a scout, so they can't lame deer and won't aggro predators. Ah. That might actually answer the question that we had during the break about making other scouts not being able to lame things? Or is it because they're upgraded from an eagle? It's an eagle that's been upgraded into a hunting wolf, and a scout that's been upgraded into a spearman. Okay. That's the reason. Okay, let's take a look. So we've got our hunting wolf. We have our basically our little Yukon village. Ah, and this is not a dense forest. There's a passage there. Maybe if I didn't have big trees, I'd be able to see that there are passages all over the place. Maybe there aren't passages all over the place. Who knows? Not me. There's a passage there. Okay, and the outside has a lot of the small wood lines. We have our river here. The river has a bunch of fish in it. You could dock. You can also just build a mill. Or you can build a dock and still gather with the villagers. You have a bunch of hunt. So yeah, the question here, I guess, is where you build your TC. You could build it right here. You have wood and lots of deer. And then you go around chasing your opponent's villagers the whole time. You could move outside. You probably don't do that because of all of these deer are here. I think that's how you play this. And then you can move out later freely because there are actually lots of holes. At first I thought this was closed, but it's not. Alright. Give me another 1v1. My goodness, the AI really likes to throw errors on empty maps. Next up, we have Cascade. Let's go for C. Do we see a cascade? Oh no, it's not. It's called GA Cascade. There we go. Oh, okay. I see. The Yukon was also by the Mad Catter. That explains the Wolf and Spearman thing because he did that on the one of the Outback Rumble maps. That's where I recognize it from. Anyway, we have Cascade here. You start on each side of a river that is cut in two by a cascade. You will need to cross it to conquer your opponent by foot or boat. Don't be too passive or your enemy will run on you. Both players start at the same elevation, either at the top or the bottom. The top of the river is shallow, the bottom is full of fish. The center lake is full of shorefish. This is true. We have fish, shorefish, shallows, up, low. Pretty straightforward. Could use with some more terrain mixing and variation, I'd say. Ultimately, it just plays out like, well, like bay, I guess, or pants, right? It's you can fight for some fish, and other than that, it's a land map, pretty open. We have no hills. Well, okay, we have one hill. One thing that would be worth checking is if, yeah, ships can just sail through all of that. Okay. It's a bit too bland, I'd say. Like the layout wise, it could work. You just need a bit more decoration to make it a compelling layout, I'd say. Which map do we currently have open? It's open Cascade. Yeah. All right. Let's close some maps that we have open. Go. There's our Water Arabia. Water Arabia. I didn't even I thought it was called Water Arabia. I didn't even take a close look at the name before. Anyway. Next up we have Monty Hall. That's another delicious dozen. All right. Description. Likened to Atacama on steroids by playtesters, you have 3 land paths to your enemy separated by walls. One wall is made of the thickest wood on the map, and the other wall is made of water where the fishing is worthwhile but not game-ending. Central passage contains extra golds on the cracked terrain, has skinny goats, 33 food, and is guarded by 4 pierce armor lions. The uphill side passages feature turtle rocks that contain the only stone on the map. Maybe turtles? We'll have to take a look. Probably turtles, actually, given that that Danger Duck decided to put fish on gold and calves on gold in the other map. Capturable 1 HP fence sections assist in alerting players to sneaks. Alright, the food on extra goats is reduced to 33 and the pierce armor on lions has been set to 4 in order to discourage the Ghost Lake issue of all Britain's Tatars Vietnamese. More broadly, nerf early game archer rushes. That's interesting. The melee armor is normal, but pierce armor, you basically can't send archers across because these lions have so much pierce armor. Alright, let's take a look. So, we have a player. We have capturable fences. We have thick wood here with some zebras in it. We have our Turtle Rocks. Turtle Rock Studios, yes. We have our ice fence wall here. Well, that was a rock fence wall. We have our water here, our hill water. But you can just send the archers around the outside and not worry about the pierce armor lions. It's slightly longer, I guess, but more turtle rocks. I'm not a big fan of this. Too many contrasting areas and a bit too contrived, I'd say. Hard to say what the gameplay will be like, but I feel like a lot of these maps have very contrasting areas, while not that much visual appeal in any one of them, really. But you do have these different sections. I don't know how it does gameplay-wise. That would be the interesting thing, I suppose. I don't know. Next up, we have Otisco. That name seems familiar. Let's see what it looks like now. Let's go grab the script. Did I not even open the delicious whatever it was? Delicious Monty Hall. There we go. That just changed the lion armor, pierce armor. This map seems familiar. Let's take a look at what's been done here. A whole bunch of upgrades to various things. Changing the move speed. Alright, so let's... What do we have here? Autisco Valley may be gold and desolate, but its residents harbor riches beyond measure. Will you make camp immediately or travel to the fish-rich lake? Choose carefully, for the mountain pass may not reopen for quite some time. Special nomads start with the ox wagon, just delete it to spawn villagers. Traveling to the lake will always give 75 seconds more idle TC time than the opponent who made camp immediately, regardless of size, because the speed of the ox wagon is modified. Okay, I can't generate this one very often. The issue before with this was that this was a packed town center, right? And that it was tough to find a spot for a TC. Now, I would say it's still tough to find a spot for a TC, probably, just looking at it, but there are some 4-tile areas that are available. Loading time is slow, and we can take a look at why that's the case. It's because it's a very large script. But we've seen this map before in a different contest, right? The thing here, okay, there are a bunch of wolves, and probably the wolves don't aggro onto the cart, but do aggro onto villagers, so you choose whether or not to move out. And we have some nice scenery, more than before. And I like the waterfall. Like this... That's a decent attempt at getting a map script to do a waterfall. You might not be able to do much better than that, honestly. So you delete it to get villagers. You still have the problem that these hills are tough to build TCs on. At least you don't have to fiddle around with getting the cart to be exactly on grid. But it'll still be tricky. Map looks nice. It does. Yes, it does. It definitely looks even better than the last time I've seen it. Where's the gold? The gold is all in single piles. This is really nice. That would give casters something nice to look at. Let's see. The reason why it takes a long time to load, it's a large script, which is 1.4 MB. Does the gate disappear and just turn into a waterfall only? Well, it's because it's very unconventional. And the people judging it probably valued other things. Visual appeal, I would, you value it very highly, but it's hard to say how gameplay will be on it without testing it. And even then, it might be too unconventional. The gate is there to help place it. Fair enough. That makes sense. Let's take a look at the other one, which is Saranac. I don't recognize that name. Will we need to restart the scenario editor for this before we run it? Should be okay, I think. What do we got here? Changing some work rates. All right, let's read. Although Saranac Lake contains many islands, the choking undergrowth and boggy shallows limit building space. Will you tame this wilderness, find its artifacts, and emerge victorious, or will your empire sink into the mud? 5 possible configurations of snowflake fractal constituting the water. This actually looks like the fractal is hidden enough that you don't... I remember the actual playing on this a larger snowflake when we played it with 8 players, right? But on the smaller size, you don't really see it that much. At least this one here could just be some sort of non-deterministic thing. Building space is a real issue, though. I have played this one. It was larger, and I was hiding in the corner. Not this one, but the other fractal. Nomad start. I think this one also suffers, like Otisco actually somewhat. There's not much building space. Here perhaps even less. This looks nice. Building space will be tough. And potentially water could be quite dominant. As in completely dominant. These are hills, so the land units will take less damage when they're up on them. But it's basically another water nomad, more or less. Very scattered resources. Yeah. I don't know, I think water will still be dominant. As it was actually when I played it. You know, I was camping in the corner. Okay, there was a bit more land. I was putting a bunch of caravels and cannon galleons and stuff. Can, of course, run everywhere across the shallows. Well, water nomad is of course different too, but the thing here too, though, is where do you even get wood? You say demo ships won't kill lumberjacks. If the lumberjacks aren't in the corner, then they're going to be running out of wood way too fast. There's not much wood overall. You did increase the amount of wood in trees to 200. Still. Okay, fair enough. We're looking at 1v1. Maybe the wood is okay. And sometimes it generates with a lot more wood. This fractal here. This is a cool looking fractal. Have we seen all 5? That's our snowflake again. Yeah, this is also why it generates slowly. I think there might be 2 snowflakes that look similar. All right. Yeah, I feel like we've seen these 2 things: the snowflake and the like yin yang sign. Then we've seen this one. This is the one with the more wood. Are they all equally likely? Okay, so we have sort of different sides of the yin-yang symbol, I guess. Unequal probability. Alright, that makes sense. That would explain what we're seeing. I think, though, I'm going to move on because I have a bunch of maps to get through. This one is a bit more even S-shaped. I can... The problem is elevation comes first. Then we have objects. The heck is land generation even? Land. 10, 20, 40, 10, 20. Okay. I do have to go on though. So, should we take a look at them? We can very quickly take a look at all of them. All right. Well, this of course was not made in a text. This was generated, right? The whole file is generated, or at least the land section. It is impressive though. All right, so we saw that one. Yeah, let's see the next one. Yeah, that's that. I recognize this one. Definitely cool to be able to make fractals. Yeah, basically what he said. It is. It's pre-computed. All the variations are pre-computed in here, which is why the file size is huge. Okay, so some of them look a bit similar. We did actually see all of them ultimately. Let's undo all those changes. Save. Let's move on. Mountain coast. All right. This was the one that I think we saw already in the other. Set. Yeah, okay, so this is Mountain Coast version 3. Which we looked at this map before, so we're not going to spend much detail on it. Much time on it. It's basically the same map that we saw before with some updates. So we're going to move on and look at Heavenly Gate by Green Eggs. H. We don't, it's, oh, there's Heavenly Gate. Yeah. Yeah, Mountain Coast 3. It's fine. Did we upgrade all kinds of, oh boy. Oh, Mountain Coast upgraded all kinds of things. We need to restart the scenario editor. That will carry over. There we go. H, heaven. All right. Enjoy this nice Buddhist temple while I read the description. A high mountain pass, rich in stone and gold, lies between the two players. The mountain is rocky and can't be walled, but even if you lose access to it, there is gold stone and a route to the enemy base in the shallow bays to either side of the mountain. Shallows are dockable. So, we have the mountain. The mountain has a nice Buddhist temple in it. The mountain looks wallable. This whole area, I think you can't get into it. This is just cosmetic. This mountain. So that's something, it's a nice way to make an area that's inaccessible. And then you can still run along the coast if you need to, which is not wallable. Bit of golden stone on some islands. There. Players start with what looks to be reduced gold. And somewhat reduced stone. Very nice looking map. The path goes always past the shrine. Not to it. Interesting. Sometimes it goes through it. Okay. And we have these ponds here too. Nice looking map. Yeah, no, looks good. What do we have next? Naivasha? I may or may not have pronounced that correctly. Let's open gate. We've got it open. That should be okay. Now we need Naivasha. Change the storage of dragon trees. Okay, but didn't do it in player setup, so that I don't know if that will actually work. That might need to be in player setup to work. Enable waves needs an underscore. Why you need syntax highlighting. But let's take a look at the map itself. Actually, let's take a look at the description. Players must fight over the control of Lake Naivasha, which is filled with fish, but the savanna in which they find themselves is scarce of gold and stone. However, both sides of the lake, the hills at the base of the mountains that surround the lake are abundant with gold and stone. Players start with standard resources, but reduced gold and stone, basically. In the middle of the lake, there's a small island with a relic on it. The rest are on the player's lands. Alright. Let's take a look. First thing I notice is this lake could use some terrain mixing. Then we have players. Player. Gold and stone on the sides. So it's basically Gold Rush, but the gold isn't in the middle. And you can rush each side and fight for each side, essentially. How does this work out in a 1v1, though? Basically, one player ends up taking each side, I'd guess. Or you both fight for both, but you push one of them and give up on the other one, is what's going to happen. And then we're going to end up with something with like a semi-base trade, where each player is then centered around the gold on a side. That's what I suspect. And of course you have to go for fish because fish is available and fish is always a thing to go for. The problem is that fishing ships aren't expensive enough. They should be more expensive in Dark Age, and then have a tech to make them cheaper in Feudal. I don't know information. Oh, there is a fancy ranking here. Thanks to everyone who took part. Blah 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 blah. Final results. Yes, this was actually the one that was picked for the tournament. Surprisingly enough. Maybe because the gameplay is different with 2 gold rushes. I wonder. I haven't seen it played. I personally would not have picked this one. But from what I understand, essentially, it didn't score high. We'll take a look at the scores at the end. It didn't score highest. It was just Jordan like this one. Perhaps to complement the other maps that were already in there. Alright, next up we have Huangshan. Well, you go fast castle, but you also go for fish. And go fast castle behind the fish boom. Well, we'll have to see it played since it is actually going to be in here. There we go. Next map. This one, what do we do? We've upgraded some trees. Yeah, we're going to have to reload after this one, I'd say. The yellow mountains in the middle of China. High forested cliffs are in the center and the outside of the map. Town centers are located on the central plateau. The valleys on the map's edge have more resources, but most of the stone is on the central mountain's edge. In the late game, you might want to cut a path through the jungle to reach the extra gold on the highest mountaintop. This is a 2TC start version for a map which I created for Terra Nova Duos. The main difference is that there are less resources per valley and that the slopes, rock terrain, around the central mountain and inner flanks are unbuildable. Hello, hello. This map does look nice. So, okay, so we have double TC start. Probably should play it on 3 players if you're going to do double TC. Let's do that. And there is a little bit of gold in the center to chop through. That's unlikely to become relevant, to be honest. Got the stone around there. Looks to be some unwallable terrain, as we read in the description. So, what could be a bit awkward, I suspect, is placing a lumber camp. Yeah, that could be very awkward. You can lumber camp the outside. How's it over here? Yeah, same. You can lumber camp on the outside. That's kind of far away, though. That's a wee bit awkward. Let's see. Well, it might even be intentional to make walling wood lines harder. Right. Yeah, it could definitely be done, or the forest could stay a bit further away from the edge. So yeah, overall, visually it's nice with the swamp on the rock here. This is very green. It must be some sort of interesting masking. It's the shallows masked over grass or something like that. Very nice forest mixing. And we're seeing a lot of maps that take elevation to the extreme of what is feasible. Grass 2 could be, I like that a 2 TC map was submitted. I wonder actually how easy it is to chop through, because we also have these jungle rocks in here potentially blocking part of the way in the middle. Don't know if they block. I don't think they block everything. They just throw on every second tile. Very nice looking map. And then, okay, each player basically has a relic down below with 2 sets of berries. There's one forage. Why was there a second forage over there? Maybe some resource things that need to be tweaked. Or I'm blind. This second forage bush I don't see for the other players. Might just be a bug. Oh no, there's a second forage. I don't know. Anyway, let us move on to... Oh, how do I pronounce that one? Probably Katinga. Yeah, probably. And I said I was going to restart after this one, so let's do that. Katinga with A, C, there we go. This one does various upgrades. Okay. C, no. There we go, C. Yeah, there we go. Let's go. We have something interesting in the middle. A semi-closed flat land map. Lots of scattered small bush forests and rock formations, some extra deer patches. Players only start with one gold patch and one stone patch, otherwise standard resources. Close to the center are two lands with a high amount of stone and gold mines, surrounded by a line of unbuildable rock. In the very middle is a shallow lake, very rich in fish, but it's also a place where jaguars search the water for food. If you want to access it, you have to fight the jaguars, and they can't be lured. That's actually a good point here to make them not lurable. That's easy enough to do, just tell them to be unconvertible and then they suddenly are defensive and not aggressive anymore. So we have our jaguar thing in the middle. We have some very visually appealing rock formations. We have these somewhat tricky to wall rocky areas. We have two with stone and two with gold. Let's see, are they always positioned? Oh yeah, I think I was supposed to help with this. Was one of the things I was going asked to comment on, at least, is how to set this up properly. Essentially, you have these four, but you want it so that both players have fair access to the two of them. Like in this case, this player has access to two stone ones, and this player has access to a golden stone. And maybe with some direct placement, if you specify positions in the corners and sides, we had talked about that could be a way to solve that. Other than that, we have lots of tree upgrades happening to make these nice looking forests. And yeah, very nice terrain mixing overall. It's sort of a gold. It's not even a gold. It's just like an everything rush. More or less. You kind of want to fight for all the stuff in the middle. But you also have these rock formations. Nah, I like it. I like the visual appeal. A little bit messy, but looks very nice. And we're gonna actually go to 1v1 again. There we go. Next up, we have Dueling Peaks Regicide. So let us find, it's called ECK. ECK Dueling Peaks. Tiny 2 players. ECK Dueling Peaks. And we're going to, because it has to be regicide, we're just going to do define regicide to get a proper view of this map. There we go. Alright, description time. Players each start with a castle on a high peak between each other and close to the center of the map, within trebuchet range of each other. Player bases are close, but the castle tight wood lines make it possible to play defensively. Wood lines and extra resources throughout the map reward map control, but a firm push up the middle can remove the opponent's castle and gain his hill. Castles only spawn in regicide, though this could be changed. Having a king to protect makes the castle in the middle all the more important. This is an interesting concept. The castles are so close. I wonder if you add 1 range, 2 range, 3 range, What you have to pick on this map is Teutons. Or some civ that gets extra range on their castles, other than Teutons. Is there anyone else? They don't get it until Imp, though, right? I wonder if there's some clever civ pick here. Other than that, the rest of the map is essentially an Arabia with very few hills and not enough terrain mixing. Yeah, visual appeal could be improved. I like the concept of regicide. The other thing here maybe is make sure the castles are really in the middle for both players. Like you want the castle positions to be really exact. And then the thing with some of these contests is ultimately they want a map to use for their event. Although they could just take what Jordan chooses, but that's why sometimes it makes sense for them to do it non-publicly. Surely not that much work went into this. On the other hand, too, people who are more skilled might need less work to produce the same kind of product, but yeah, no, I understand. I understand where you're going for, the point you're trying to make. Yeah, like this provides potentially an interesting gameplay opportunity. Like that's a unique idea, but everything else is bland about it, right? Well, your map also provides an interesting gameplay opportunity and looks very nice, but the gameplay is so unusual that it generally doesn't score well when people judge it who value expected gameplay. It's always tricky because they want to produce a map or some maps for their event. Dueling Peaks. All right, probably our next one is Fertile Crescent. Let's take a look. Yeah. Well, the other option is they could just not release scores at all, but that wouldn't be super satisfying either, right? Plus, if you're gonna have prize money, you kind of do need to. Well, I guess you could just say these 3 maps won, but yeah, it's tricky. Fertile Crescent is this is Thar Desert with different terrains. Opponents battle for fertile lands between 2 rivers in an adjacent area. Yeah, let's take a look at this one. This is Thar Desert, reskinned, and also it doesn't have these big forests on the sides, but rather a bunch of forests in the middle. But the overarching layout is the same. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It'll play out slightly differently because you don't have this wood on the sides to fight for, but ultimately similar. Let's close a couple windows again. Yeah, maybe they could do that and just say, these don't read the requirements at all, so we're not going to look at them in more detail. Might make sense to do that and to set out the requirements ahead of time. Next up, we have Wadi. We're going to need W. Yes, there we go. Wade, Wadi. There we go. Huh. Alright, this one looks very dry. What have we got as a description? This map shows a wadi, hopefully pronounced correctly. A river valley that has started to dry out until the next rain comes and the river will once again flow down to its bed. The river left some puddles and some small lakes in the middle, around which there is a last oasis with some wood, some golden zebras. Players spawn in dried out lands before the oasis without a town center and need to look for a place to settle. The oasis is close and provides a lot of food and some golden wood. The opponents will be right across a small lake and might be more suited for early aggression, so players could also decide to run away and secure the hillsides, where they can find vast forests, stone, gold, and food. If they survive the initial encounter, they can find more scattered minerals all across the dried out valley. Yeah, that would, I think that would be a better way to handle it. Just to say, you know, these are the things that we want, and if it doesn't have this in the map, then we're not going to consider it. All right, we have. Actually, I wanted to do something with the map that we were looking at before. I don't remember which one it was. The dueling peaks. I wanted to let's fix that again. There we go. So let's take a look here. We have our oasis in the middle. We have our villagers who could settle there or who could run away. And we have kind of a bland area everywhere else. So do you fight for the middle or not here? I think you don't. You go back, you say, alright, 5 shorefish and 6 berries and 2 elephants are enough. Take some goats with you, and you don't need the middle. Because these shorefish aren't necessary when you have home shorefish. I think that's what you do. And then it just plays out. You just wall in yourself at the back, super safe, and fight for the valley later on. Bit too open and dry. Not enough. Not enough to really fight for. You go back and defend, and then you push out later. And then it's tough to push out because you have to push up a hill. I don't think you fight for the middle here. Alright, next up I get to submit a map. We get to look at rice terraces. Did I... There we go. Description time. Standard start, but all the neutral areas consist of buildable shallow rice terraces separated by unbuildable rock. Docking is possible, but there are no fish and ships will be stuck on one elevation level. So, yeah, I made this one, and it looks nice, but I'm not going to judge my own stuff. I put mountains in the forest at the top. Basically, it's a land map, but slightly more closed than Arabia with more forests. And I don't think you'd actually dock. You could try to blow up your enemy's wood line with demos, but probably you just end up on the wrong level. If you pick the right level, though, you can sail across sometimes. It could be interesting. Yeah, I used the grass here to make the rice farms look good. And I had to do a fair bit of terrain magic to not end up with beaches all over the place. Because these these terrains, the farm terrains, like to give blocky beaches overall, so I had to layer them this way and that way in order to get it to blend nicely. But yeah, basically some sort of Southeast Asian area with rice paddies. Probably try and submit this to some other contest at some point because it's nice. Next up, we have Catch 'em All, which looks like a Pokemon map. There we go. Does this upgrades? Alright, we'll restart after this one. I see a thing in the middle where someone has also gone for the farms and a bit of a rock around it. And looks like players are trapped on this banana in the middle. Not really trapped, but some shallows. Let's read the description of this one. An aggressive hybrid map with no fish but turtles. 4 per player plus some extra. While land units offer early pressure and mobility, Navy may be the key to controlling the map as most of the resources are reachable from shore. That's the question. Is it worth docking for shorefish? And that I'm not entirely sure is the case, because fishing ships don't gather shorefish very quickly. Demos and galleys could be nice later on, but like in my map here, it's sort of trying to make water more of a decision rather than it's present, you have to go for it. Although you could dock if you want military presence. Overall, nice looking map. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Okay, sometimes your shorefish berries, your berry turtles can be front, sometimes they can be back. That can be rough. Like this, if you mill here, this is a lot easier to pressure than this if it's milled. Might be nice to have that in a standard position. Guaranteed forward or guaranteed back. Other than that, looks... You have to move out and get map control. Pretty aggressive early on. Next up, we have Swamped. We're gonna move on to many S maps. There we go. I said I was gonna restart. Am I gonna not restart just yet? I think we're gonna not restart just yet. Alright, after this one we are gonna restart though, because we've been upgrading too many units and this carries over. Swamp, the hybrid map designed to have a military water focus with 2 plentiful gold islands to control. While important water shouldn't be essential, the water is split into 2 areas, which can be walled off to slow down the enemy. Some resources on the outside are safe from ships. Players should be able to reach Castle Age early and build defensive structures to regain water control. The center contains the most efficient way to gain wood, but is also an easy target. So, I see, well, the water can be walled off. I see all of the water is connected. I see a bunch of deep fish lurking in the swamp. One thing that can be done is you can change the terrain ID, or you can use a placeholder and as a second object and place like shorefish or some sort of smaller fish that aren't necessarily like marlins jumping out of a swamp. The outside here looks very nice from the terrain mixing, and the middle is a bunch of wood. This is somewhat similar to a map that I had called Lake Nomad, except there this was all water. Well, these were shallows, but these were actual lakes. Similar type of idea. You have these gold hills. Okay, there's one forward, one back gold. Yeah, there's not that much gold. You might have to fight for one of these hills. Interesting. Yeah, not bad. Would offer some interesting gameplay. Or you have an extra easy wall off when your gold helps you wall. Also, you probably want to play with small trees. Or I want to play with small trees, probably. Let's load another 1v1 and check out our next map, which is Huron. Let's try that. 2-player. H. Okay. Description is Hauran is, according to Wikipedia, a region in southern Syria characterized by fertile land in a central valley but a rocky desert terrain in the surrounding hills. Players spawn with a big forest in the middle, but the rest of the map is covered by hilly, for the most part unbuildable terrain. There's lots of stone and gold, but it's scattered on the rocky terrain and must be mined long distance. And their military production will be key to protect the vulnerable economy. So at first this is sort of reminiscent of Hideout. With your Hideout, you start with double berries, triple berries. Do you start with... Okay, so as you start with enough food for plenty time, but it can be kind of tricky to wall. You need to just make a potato wall here. And then you have this stone scattered. And gold. So you have one gold mine here. And then the rest of it scattered. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting in theory, but when you're building a mining camp here, oof, you have to hope that your RNG gives you enough gold mines near where you live. Like you're here, you have one tile there, which you can mine super long distance, and then there's a bunch of gold here on the side, while this player has no neutral gold close, and then has some way at the edge of the map. And then you have to defend it with military to even gather it at all. It's potentially interesting to have these patches of buildable terrain where you build, you build a castle on that, you build mining camp, castle, maybe production buildings. You could end up almost cramped for space, but your starting position is close. But then you start towering here. Could be... The more I think about it, the more this could actually be somewhat interesting gameplay. The other thing, of course, that could be done to improve it is to make this rocky area more visually interesting, maybe. And maybe have these patches be a different terrain that's visible, like green on the mini-map. That would be good. Or to have it be the light-colored desert sand. Just not the same as the rock, so it's actually... So you can actually tell at a pinch, at a glance, where it's buildable on the mini-map. That would be good, I would say. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, there's some weird stuff with X's of boxes of terrain happening here too. Sometimes it's real narrow. Maybe maybe this land that is the forest needs to be a bit smaller or positioned more suitably. Next up, we have the Pite's-Moor. The one we just had was H. Ron, yeah. And then we have the Pite's-Moor with P. Let's take a look at that one. Okay. Nomad start, it seems. With a nomad start, this map is covered in patches of water and buildable marshland, allowing for both water and land plays to be viable on partially exclusive, partially overlapping terrain. Fish is plentiful and reachable by both villagers and fishing ships. Woodlines are only available on the edges. It's hard to wall your base. So... tricky. Kind of like Water Nomad. The question is really whether or not your patch that you choose to dock ends up being one that can be reached, that can reach other areas or not, whether all of this water is connected. I think ships will be able to sail over a lot of these passages, so in reality, it's almost a Water Nomad to start. You just have to be careful that you don't dock a pond. Like, if you dock here, your ships might be stuck in there. Well, most of the areas are connected, and if you have water control, you can just win. Because your ships can range the land units. Water Nomad is always tricky for that reason, even when you provide land-exclusive areas. Getting wood should be doable, though. You just put a lumber camp somewhere. The other thing you could try and do is change these beaches as well. Yeah, I don't know. Tricky, probably a bit too inconsistent with the water bodies to be good for competitive. Most of it's connected, though. I think to play this, you have to play it as a water map. You TC the outside for sure. There's not much gold. I didn't notice that before, but there is not much gold at all. Like, it's okay for a map not to have much stone, but there are a few gold spots that if your villagers aren't near one of those, you could have a hard time finding gold at all. So the amount of, generally for Nomad, the amount of resources isn't that high. There are some cheap. You can get the fish. Next up, we have Brooks. Alright. We're gonna go for B. Brook, what's it called? M Brooks. Ah, fine. We must have most of the M maps by now. There we go. And description. Inspired by Shireland by Green Eggs, relatively open hybrid map with standard resources. Dark Age economy can be boosted by fishing. So, relatively standard is what I read out of that. And we have a bit of farm terrain around the TCs for a nice visual appeal. Basically a very standard style map. You have some water, could do some fishing. There are a lot of shallows though. The fishing ships could be attacked. Water control isn't that essential though because there's so many shallows. Yeah. Pretty standard. Looks very nice. Or looks a standard amount of niceness. Nothing super extraordinary to talk about. I like this. Blending the farm terrain in. And also these patches here that go from dirt to slightly dirty to not dirty. Same here. We can open up M. Brooks for a moment. M. Brooks. What have we changed here? We've changed the attribute terrain IDs for some of the fish. Okay, yeah. Oh goodness, I have a bunch of maps open again. Let's close all of these. S'mores. All right. Cool. Next up, we should be... Oh, we have petrified. Is this just the same petrified as before? I think this looks to be petrified again, and Relic Island again. So I'm going to skip those. We looked at those before already. Petrified and Relic Island. Because those, I think, are 100% the same. Or... They're similar enough that we don't need to take another look at them, I'd say. Or should we? We can quickly take a peek at them. Relic Island and Petrified. What was it called? Oh, it's GAS. Alright. JS. Oh, we even have two of them. I don't know which one's which. I don't actually know which one I was looking at before. I think they're similar enough that it doesn't matter. I just noticed that I have two entries for it. Let's check the same seed. Yeah, okay. I think they're similar enough that the feedback from before will be the same. And then we have Relic Island. We can also try the same thing here. We use one seed. It's, of course, we're looking at a different size. We're looking at it 1v1 versus 2v2, but these maps aren't ones where that would likely be an issue. This is carrying over from some other map that stone is there. Yeah. I think it's pretty much the same. So what have we got after that? Also, because this is a long stream, I do eventually want to get through. Rice Terrace is done. Oh, extraterrestrial. I get to show my map again. Two themes. I guess we could. You know what? I could look at the themes. Jungle. Yeah, okay, we can have a jungle theme. I did think we didn't have the jungle theme before. I don't remember which one we had or if we had the European before. In any case, it is just a visual change, right? Looks fine, yeah. Let's move on. Oh my goodness. There we go. And yeah, I submitted this one. Similar to Petrified from the look, sort of. I was trying to go for a bit of a space look with the outside. I have docks in the corners. This was my third attempt at getting one of those maps. used in competitive. And you start with a Photon Man as a scout, but he has the stats of a scout. So it's just visual. It's basically Nomad without fish. Basically Nomad without fish. And lots of rock. Buffalo versus sheep is a difference, but not a big difference. This map, though, I changed since submitting it with where I got rid of the forests. I can show that very briefly. I got rid of the forests and made the forests be infinite trees behind obelisks instead. I don't know, I'm still looking for more space-themed things to add. But we shall move on past this. I guess the only other thing that was interesting about this one is players begin with a herdable in the suggested TC spot, which is equidistant between the villagers, so the villagers aren't just scattered around. They're placed so that the middle point between the three of them is where you should build a town you want. Yeah. Next up we have Kilauea. Yeah. Okay. Space monkeys. The problem is that you can't rename things other than to names that are already in the game files, in the strings of the game files. So that limits you somewhat. K. Random map def is included automatically in every script. This is true. Hybrid map based off the big island in Hawaii. Players start with shore and plentifully populated waters, but the twin mountains of Hawaii loom between them. Fertile jungle fruits and rich in mines. They must decide how to allocate their forces between control of the sacred slopes above the water and below. I am seeing a mountain and a second mountain, and yes. So basically you have a large mountain with relics, gold, and stone, and another mountain with relics, gold, and stone, but different trees on it. And it looks to be standard. Other than that, it's sort of basically the layout of Nomad, but with these two mountains in the middle. Looks nice. Nothing too unusual. Then after that we have Winter's Clearing. We're going to look for W. Winter's Clearing. This one looks potentially interesting. A winter land map with 2 bases per player. One with almost a classic spawn as arena and with very few mines in the walls, and the other with some villagers and a mill to gather shorefish close to it, and also some mines. Players start with 6 villagers and a mill and a house, which speed up the complexity of the start of a classic arena map, while adding the possibility of more aggression and complexity in feudal. This is true. So we have our arena, which has, well, 1 golden stone inside, and the berries inside, and the boars inside. We have a very colorful winter forest. We have some ponds here that will likely not come into play. And then we have these little pockets where the players can gather the fish, and they cannot easily wall it off. Thanks for watching. I think I'm most of the way through here. There are maybe like 5 more maps. Thanks for joining for so long. I know it's getting pretty late here, actually. But thanks for watching. Always nice to do this with more people to talk to. Palisade Wall. Alright, so this is not wallable, so you'd have to go for a very big wall. Alright, the scenario editor doesn't like diagonal walls, but you get the idea. On the other hand, I guess you can wall to the mill. You could wall to the mill and have the 2 fish at the front. You gather those in Dark Age and then wall to the mill. Could be tough sometimes. This is good because if it weren't for this, then players will just go bam and block it off. But like this, you have to. Aha! You do that. Ice can be walled across when the ice is technically a beach. It's a bit tricky, but you can wall. You can wall it off. You can wall it off because you can wall across the ice beach. I like the idea, though. Essentially, I guess what you do with these guys, you gather the fish, and somehow wall yourself in, and then eventually you either send them home or you build a lumber camp, and then later a TC and really wall off the corner. Then you have a nice TC corner with resources. Yeah, you wall across. You take the front fish first so that you don't get pressured by archers. And then you just build a TC here in Castle Age. And you get there faster because of the extra resources. Ah, interesting. Next up... actually, what's the problem? I'm still gonna start peeking ahead. Next up, we have Star Island. Yeah, that should be fixable. But that's true, the players just get the walls around their first land, I think, or something like that, right? Which protects you against aggression, but that is fixable, yeah. Ooh, I like this. I do like this. Next up, we have Star Island, a hybrid map with a central island featuring a cosmetic volcano and some extra mines. These mines are completely exposed to the ones which control the swamps surrounding it. In the 4 corners, there are 4 fish connected by shallows on the border which prevent walling, so you also have more aggressive plays. Alright. Let's... Oh, we didn't open up the arena. What was that? Winter something. Winter's clearing, yeah. Think. Basically, I just need to watch to see if too much stuff has been upgraded. Alright. Star Island. I like the volcano. Mad Cadra had this one thing, I think, where you had fire, actually, like Gaia attacking with a 0 accuracy fire to make a real volcano. That would be cool. I see a flying dog. I see several flying dogs. And I also see some snow bushes. Let's load scenario. I don't think there's supposed to be snow bushes necessarily on this map. Alright, go away, error. Star Island. The snow bushes are gone. The flying dogs are gone. Nice. Nope, the flying dogs are still there, but the snow bushes are gone. Good enough. Alright, so is it dockable? Surely, but let's just double check because we did have one map where that wasn't the case. Fine. Here on the side, you can block the edge of the map with a dock. Or it can be too narrow to even dock at all. That being said, what you do is you dock in the corners. But I think the clever thing... Yeah, no, that's too much work. You have to reload the scenario because the Gaia, when you upgrade units, that carries over. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to even have to do that anymore. I think the strategy, if you're going to go for the fish, is you dock block in the corner on one side, or maybe even both sides if you really want to. And then you just take the fish in peace. And then build fish traps in the corner. Actually, let me just double check something. Ah, never mind. Alright. Never mind. Alright, the dock blocking has no effect. You'd have to wall too. Yeah. Okay, the other thing, I see this star apparently. This is kind of tricky to see. It's hard to see it. That this is not a passage, but this is. You can see it on the mini map though. And I guess it is just the passage between the players, so it's not that hard to see. But this, with the brown, it's kind of hard to tell. I would say. At first I thought the whole thing was walkable. How much gold is in the middle? There are gold. Oh, each of these points has. Some of them have gold and some of them have stone, I see. Gold, gold, stone, stone, empty, empty. Okay, okay. Yeah, no, it looks nice. I thought I was being clever with blocking off with the dock, but no. No, you'd have to block and then wall, which you can do. That's more work. This looks good. Because it blends nicely with this pit too. I think maybe different types of shallows or not brown here could make that a bit easier to see. Because it looks very similar to these areas. Yeah, other than that, looks very nice. Maybe not so many flying dogs. No, it's fine to put those in sometimes. Next up, we have Monastic Lands version 2. I've seen this one before too. We're going to go to Monastic Lands. But you have to put in only a few, or like one per map. Not too many. Otherwise it loses its special sense. Right, we have our turn of that. Let's go next. What was it? Monastic Lands. I need to finish up. It's getting late. This one, well, okay, basically this map, well, you can read the description. I'll read the description. Alright, there's a wooden circled area, the monastic land in the middle, containing the player's monasteries, houses, missionaries, one per player with reduced range, some relics, and the monks live in peace. It cannot be converted. Players start at the banks, connected to the outside. It's too shallow here for ships to sail. Battleships are unavailable, excepting fire and demolition ships. Players have 2 monasteries. The second one is walled in and located not far from the TC, but they're unable to build more. The 1 transport ship is ready for some landings at the very start. Resources are almost standard with fishing. Alright, atonement is disabled for all civs. Transport ships have 150 HP and can board 11 units. Monastery HP doubled. So this one was submitted for Holy Cup as well. With similar stats. Maybe, I don't know if it had the walled monasteries. I think that might be new. A lot of game data changes with changing the monk text, changing which ships you can produce and so on. I always don't like that so much, but you have this interesting thing here where the missionaries are in the center. They can't pick up relics, they can't fight each other, so they can just try to convert villagers that get too close to the middle. Fishing ship is the transport ship is Gaia to start with, but it converts to the player right away. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a bit easy to stalemate since you have, if you can't build all those ships. I don't know what to say. Then next up we have depleted settlements and quarries. We're going to look at depleted settlements first. That's D. And then we're going to look at quarries, which is Q. So depleted settlements. D. Alright. Actually, we need to... This scenario changed a lot of things. Load here. Tiny. Depleted settlements. Generate. Okay, this is a very empty looking map. Very empty looking map. So let's see. Your empire has exhausted most of the natural resources in your vicinity. Secure faraway regions to gather more. Resources that are further away have visibly larger deposits, including the forest trees. Built-in terrains. For each spawn position, opponents will appear in one of 3 reflected locations. A tower and a natural barrier, 1 long lake per player, provide a little bit of defense. For the early stages of the game, water bonuses don't seem very helpful here, but at least they are theoretically relevant. A combination of these could help weaker civs be slightly less vulnerable. Map generation combines symmetrical and non-symmetrical elements with some fancy direct placement behind the scenes. Yeah. The settlements are pretty depleted. You have more wood over here. So basically these are 50 wood probably, while these are 100 wood, and these are 150 wood. 100 wood. These, and then you have not much food and gold here, but you have big gold piles on the other side, big stone piles here. And you have some potential different layouts. that are mostly symmetrical. Okay, we have towers guarding the wood this time, yeah. Or lakes can be over here. So these things can be positioned differently. Here, this is in a real gold rush. And the towers are pretty close here guarding these wood lines this time. So you have a lot of randomization in where the actual things are. I wonder if this is too depleted. Like, this can be very rough if your civilization isn't good at feudal aggression. I guess because you have the tower, but there's not much wood overall and not much gold and stone either, right? Unless it's all concentrated in one area, so it could be over really quickly. You don't control it. Depending on what the layout actually is. Here we have resources on both sides with gold on one and stone on the other. It is random enough that you can't be guaranteed. But here you have gold on one side with stone on the mirror, stone and gold. But then one player would control the top and one the bottom. Or one player controls both and the other player loses. Now, the one thing I think that I worry here is that you could be very vulnerable if you're not. Like, it's just so open. And even with the one tower, where do you need secure gold in feudal age? Where will you get secure gold in feudal age? Very far away. It's, I don't know, interesting. Definitely some interesting concepts at work. Extremely exposed. I mean, the wood, I guess the tower on the wood does help. And that tells you where there's a wood line too, but this is a long distance to run your villagers. I don't know. It might work for good, it might be interesting gameplay, it's hard to say. Hard to predict. And also, lots of different possible layouts. I think these Gold Rush style ones where they're really concentrated, this can be tough again. You have these two gold mines and everything else is in the center. And it could be very easy for one player to roll the whole area. Interesting. Other one is quarries that we're going to look at here. Let's take a look at that. And let's take a look at the description for quarries. Gold and stone deposits are difficult to defend quarries spread out fairly. The goal is to encourage expansion in a variety of territory, not just expansion of population. To encourage expansion of territory. For each spawn position, opponent will appear in reflected positions, 1 of 3. Forest generation at impassable mountain ranges limit the openness of the maps, but not in players' immediate vicinity and not necessarily in the early ages. Having a different mix of offense and defense with different seeds is intentional. The map generation optimizes only for balance, not for some measure of wallability. A very small lake is provided in order to make all civ bonuses at least slightly relevant. So basically we have players, we have these pits that cannot be walled, that have the gold in them. They look nice, these craters. You have the lake, so that water bonus are theoretically relevant. You have more of these pits. And the positions are, I think they're computationally balanced, even though it doesn't look like it. But I think they are They are nominally balanced, actually, with the number and closeness of them. Like, you know, one close gold, one slightly further stone for both of them, and then the distances between each of these and the reflected one on the other side are the same. And you have these mountain ranges. Once again, very tricky to... Well, is this tricky to wall? This could be okay. Bit easier to wall than the other one. The Biz is certainly going for some unique concepts here that could probably be quite competitive too. It's just similar to the discussion we were having earlier. It's a question of whether the competitive community and the judges are ready to accept something like this as being very competitive because it's unconventional, or whether just conventional maps that are more similar to what people expect will be favored more. Next up, we are nearing the end, thank goodness, because it's late. Kimberley Mine. That is a mine in South Africa that No, I haven't been to that one. I was to a different one. It's long been abandoned, but treasures might still lurk for those brave enough to venture into the deep pit that's been filled by rains of the past century. So we need... It's under K. K, Kimberley Mine. I need K over here. All right. I see the mine. I see it filled. I see the gold. So it's like, it's not golden pit, it's more like golden funnel. Everything on the outside, well, you start with less gold because it's a gold rush map. There's plenty of neutral stone. Yeah, it looks good. Looks good. This is very sloped, so you won't be able to build castles anywhere in it. You're just along the outside. That's the interesting aspect here. And it is cracked terrain too, but most of the buildings will need to be built on the outside because it will be hard to build anything in here. But you go in and dock here in Dark Age, Feudal Age, then you stop fighting over it because it's not worth it anymore. There are not that many fish. And then you start running military around or towering, and then you build a castle on the side of it. It actually looks nice on the minimap too. Golden funnel. I don't know if it's that special, but it looks nice. And last but not least, we have Golden Corner. Bam. All right. Description. This map consists of two parts. In the corner, there's an elevation with lots of gold and stone. And there are two big slopes on the opposite end of the map. And at the edge of the map, the slopes lie. There's one gigantic wood line around the edge. Players start in a cove in the slopes with limited golden stone, one elephant, one boar, and 8 sheep and berries. And in the corner of the slopes, there are some deer patches. So, players, slopes, corners. There's a corner. Oh, this is a very gold rush. It's basically gold rush on the side. And then you build wood on the outside. It's This could be a bit more ragged on the edge, maybe. Maybe have some border fuzziness, I would say, to make that look a bit nicer. And maybe add some small wood lines here. I guess it's okay to have the only wood line at the back. And then you have this gold that you need to fight for eventually. But I think, you know, the early game involves... It's hard to wall any of this. It's so open. You go back, you wall around your wood, defend that, you gather your gold here, and then at some point you push towards the middle. Yeah, I don't know. Could use some things to make it look... I don't know. Hard to say. In this corner, I think the issue here is that it's two different lands, and they're not... And they're not the same zone, so there's a little thing there. I think if you give them the same zone, then they would join up. It's probably what it is, right? Team 1, Team 2, create land, forest autumn. So I don't know. Maybe base terrain. Base terrain is currently dirt 5. Dirt's 6. Oh. It should be possible to join these lands up here. And just make it somehow look a bit nicer. You can... it's a bit too empty. I don't know. Hard to say. And now I think we are done. But before we finish, there was... Yeah, definitely. I think you go for the wood early on, because you have some gold even nearby. And then you can run military over to the gold later. What is more important early? Definitely. We have the list of... Where is it? Information. Scroll. There was an ordering in the contests where we have Heavenly Gate, Mountain Coast, and Quarries were the top 3 rated ones. So Heavenly Gate was the one that had the mountains with the Buddha temple in the middle. Mountain Coast was the one that also won the other contest, or was also in the other contest. And Quarries was the one we looked at recently by the Biz, so that one did rank highly. Can this one do a 4-4? Well, I can take a quick peek at the script again. It might be easy to answer that question. Great. 4-player game. It's only set up, I think, to do... Well, you know what? Let's just go. Let's just see what happens if we do 8 players. Since you asked. Hey, it's set up to do 8 players. There you go. Yeah, Mountain Coast won the other one. After it had already been submitted, of course. The thing is, on an 8-player map, the distances are even further. Look at the distance you'd have to send your villagers to gather wood. Also, the neutral gold seems to be entirely clustered up here this generation for some reason. And yeah, the neutral gold seems to be avoiding some places. Or maybe it's just very random. Now, Mountain Coast, let's go on. Then we have Monty Hall, Kimberley Mine, Naivasha, that was the one that was actually picked then. Then we have Swamped, Kiloa, Rice Terraces, Yukon, Pizamore, Star Island, Ketchimal, Fertile Crescent, Wadi, City Escape, Relic Island, Brooks, Monastic Lands, Cascade, Extraterrestrial, Saranac, Winter's Clearing, Depleted Settlements, Dueling Peaks, Nervous Nuggets, Petrified Golden Corner, Auron, and Otisco. Mountain Coast winning the other contests. It will not be eligible for a reward. So then we bump up Monty Hall. And Naivasha was picked. Yeah. It's also interesting to see with the rating that you have various map scripters. Like I had one map that placed, somewhat highly and one that placed somewhat lowly. Same with the bids, for example. A lot of people had a bit of a split where their maps scored well. Well, with the direct placement maps, there's always the option to set things up however you want. This could be done differently. Yeah, I don't know, and I guess it's tricky. It's always hard to know what is desirable in a map and what the people actually want to see and what's then going to end up being played. But overall, we looked at not 60 maps because some of them were repeated, but probably like 40 or 50 maps in the last couple hours in this stream. So if you joined later and you're interested, you can go through and take a look at the earlier maps. And the VOD will be available on my Twitch indefinitely once I save it. Will be in a moment. Thank you all for joining. Don't take anything personally if I criticized your map. Hopefully there was something helpful in what I said, and it was interesting to look at all the things that everyone made. Now I need to go take a break, have a drink, and go to bed. So I'm gonna head off. Thanks for joining, and good night.